Hi guys, this is Fergal from PokerVIP. Welcome to part 1 of what's going to be a video review of player Physics over on TonyBet. Physics is a member of the PokerVIP community, and he's submitted 4 videos of him playing cash game poker over on TonyBet, and we're going to be reviewing his play as we go through the session. So we'll fire on without further ado. So as you can see, we have 4 tables up and running with a variety of different stakes. So we have one table of 5NL, one 10NL, and 2 25NL. So it looks like he has been playing just for a little while before this kicked off. We have some stacks above these starting blinds already. Okay, so Ace-5 from the cutoff, definitely okay with opening here. Queen 10 in the bottom left table, I think we should be folding, nice. And Ace Queen, obviously a completely trivial open. Okay, so we get action up on the top left table. Let's see how we flop. Don't flop overly well. We do still have almost the nut-no pair. I'm definitely okay with firing a c-bet here. I expect to take this down a pretty decent chunk of the time. And when we do get called, we do have some equity anyway. But fortunately, our opponent does go ahead and fold. I mean, a decent chunk of the time there, we are absolutely just getting them to fold a hand that we're ahead of anyway. But it avoids us getting bluffed off their hand at a later point, and it just denies him any equity that he may have with hands like, say, for example, King Jack or King X, those kinds of hands. So the 6 and the Queen up in the top right table, you just get the walk, which is always good. A6, that is definitely a hand I would be opening from mid-position. It gets raised beforehand, so that's I'm perfectly fine with just holding it there. That would be a hand that I'd be including. I noticed he had his quick fold button up. And any ace in the small blind, obviously we're stealing blind versus blind in the top right table. Okay, Ace-Jack, we're 4-handed here because one player is sitting out. Definitely happy to 3-bet here, be looking to make this about 40 cent. Which he does, nice. And we take it down with the 3-bet, which we don't mind too much. Obviously we don't hate getting some action there, but taking it down there and then is a perfectly fine result as well. King Deuce, happy to go ahead and open here from the button. One thing that I do in my games is I will absolutely size down from the button because we're opening so wide. Dream flop, obviously. I would be sizing up absolutely here. He's going to have chunks of pairs plus draws plus 2 pair combos and so on. So I'm just going to pause the video here and just talk about that spot just a little bit more. So we flop incredibly strongly here. We have the stone cold nuts. And his calling range here is going to be quite inelastic. And what I mean by that is he either has a hand he's going to call or he's going to fold. There's no, like, the size that we make it isn't going to make an enormous difference. Because pretty much every single hand where he can have one pair here will have at least a good shot to go along with it. He can have, you know, some pairs plus open-enders. He can have hands like King Queen. Now we do block that, I know, but he could also have 9-10. You can also have 10 Jack and Jack Queen and 10 Queen as well. So we have a chance to set it up for a huge pot there if he does have one of those hands. He's also going to have some undercards that have completely whiffed, which against those kinds of hands, it makes absolutely no difference what we make it. And also some underpairs as well, which will likely be folding to any size as well. So I'd be sizing up there to look to really maximize our equity versus when he has versus the hands when he has connected quite strongly there. So he went ahead and he folded, so it didn't make any difference in this actual spot, but that'd be the way I'd be looking at it. Okay, I'd be looking to start leading here on the bottom right table, which it looks like he is going to do. Nice. I presume this is just a limped pot by the looks of it. I didn't actually see the pre-flop action here. Yeah, it must have been. Oh, sorry, no, that's not a 25NL table. No, there must have been a raise and a call. Ace-Jack suited up in the top left table. Definitely okay with firing a 3-bet here. I would be sizing it up here a little bit though. I'd be going to 55 to 60 cent. And on the 8-8 deuce board in the bottom left table, I'd be inclined just to go ahead and bet one and done here if we were the pre-flop aggressor. It does not look like we were. Sorry, that's a multi-way pot. So yeah, for a check fold in there is absolutely fine. A7, obviously pretty easy open from the button, any ace, and we have a very easy 3-bet with the ace-king on the top right table as well. So here in the top right table, I'll be looking to make it around about 240. $250 is also fine. We get 4-bet. I think this is a pretty trivial all-in spot. Just take our time, have a little think about it, and then move all the chips into the middle. If he is 4-bet folding, we pick up a really huge pot without a fight, and if he calls, you know, we have some equity. So definitely not too shabby. So ace-queen suited with a very aggressive image. I wouldn't hate just seeing a flat here, given that we have been quite active at this table so far. Definitely don't mind a 3-bet as well, though. Folding completely out of the question, of course. I just saw the mouse hovering over the fold button there for a moment. Yeah, I do like this flat. Primarily just because A, it's an under the gun open, so we will have a reasonably tight range, and also we have been very aggressive at this table. I don't expect to get tons of respect, and playing a little bit of pot control here definitely isn't absurd, and we can make some really, really good post-flop decisions later on with quite an under-rep hand, so I like your line here quite a lot. We're not really concerned with any 4x at all. The diamond really stinks because he's less likely to pay us now with any sort of, say if he has a hand like pocket jacks, for example. I do like that you bet here, we have to bet, but it just means that we're that little bit less likely to get called. But we do get called anyway. We don't get to see what he has, but we get the extra bit of value. I like your size there as well. We can't go overly huge there, so I do like going just, I think it was just under half pot we went, so I like that. 7-8 suited, I didn't see the pre-flop action there, but we have a pretty trivial fold with middle pair there on the monotone board. That's interesting that the website gives a little warning like that. I've definitely had issues on other sites before where we haven't gotten said warning and it's caused a bit of issues. Okay, so pocket kings, pretty easy c-bet here. And I don't see any reason to slow down on this turn. I think we're happy just to go bet, bet, bet on most ronettes. I'd be going a little bit bigger here. I'd be going up to maybe, I could even go a little bit larger again. I could argue for up to €1 here. I do like sizing up definitely though, and as I said, I just would be going just that little bit more. That's a less than ideal run out. We're more so afraid of diamonds than we are 8x. I still think we go for value here. I'd be looking inclined to bet about half pot and just going for the bet fold. Hands like pocket queens there, he's definitely going to snap us off for queens. But we can't be afraid to bet fold those kinds of spots. So basically, if he has a flush there, he's going to be check raising a decent chunk of the time. He's also going to be leading his flushes though, a reasonable percent, so we're not overly, we're not terrified of it. We still will probably get called by hands like ace 10, king 10, queen 10, stuff like that. People hate folding top pair. I wasn't expecting to see a hand as strong as queens there, obviously, because as far as I saw, there was no 3-bet pre, it was just opened and called. And yeah, we're just seeing him take the note there. He did indeed just flat with the queen, queen. But I think we definitely missed out on value there by not betting small on the river. We can go bet half pot there, and as I said, just you get paid by pretty much all their single pair hands, which they will show us a decent chunk of the time. And then, as I said, we have the option of bet folding. I don't envision him ever bluffing that river. People don't really check raise bluffs at these limits, so it's not something I'd be overly concerned with. I like the 3-bet here with the 9 and the 9. We take it down without a fight, not too shabby. So the 7-5, if it's folded to us, I would go ahead for the steal. We have a short stacking player in the big blind who's likely not going to be very good. So anyone that's not in for a full 100 bigs, a general rule of thumb, I assume they're going to be worse than average. So we're going to be looking to attack them and exploit them as much as possible. 7-5, definitely not a powerhouse, but definitely good enough to go for the steal here. And I like betting our middle pair. Protects our hand a little bit. There's a chunk of really bad cards for us here in the turn. If we just take this down without a fight, that's absolutely fine. If we do get called, we have some decent backdoors. So we pick up a backdoor flush draw, which is quite weak, but we do have the open ender as well. Checking, I do agree with this line. I could potentially get on board. I'd have to think about it a little bit. I could potentially get on board with a bet again. Check raising is an interesting option. We go for the check jam versus a short stacker. I'm not sure how much I love this play. just given that, as I said, I'm just not convinced that we're going to be getting enough folds there. He folds and he folds quite quickly, but basically it's just, I don't imagine he's ever folding an ace. And it's hard to envision him having many floats on that board that he wants to turn into a bluff on the turn. Now, obviously, he did, because as I said, I just don't buy that he's ever going to be folding an ace there. But I'm going to have a little bit of a think about that one. Definitely an interesting line, and it worked out, so we're happy. So ace-jack, we just decide to flat up on the top right table versus the early position open. I'm absolutely on board with this. We have a pretty straightforward check back here. This is the player who 4-bet folded against us there just a little while ago. So I think we have a pretty trivial pot control spot, and we can just call down here really, really profitably now. And up in the top left table, I would be inclined to be betting our top pair again. And again, we do miss a little bit of value. So betting in spots like that, obviously it's a bad run out, but we can't be afraid to bet fold, as I said. Sure, we're going to be exploitable if we're going too thin, but it's just not really a situation that I'm too concerned with, because people don't check raise enough. So with the ace-jack here, we have a pretty tricky spot, because he has gone ahead, he has bet. So I'm just going to pause it before he makes any action. So what I would be inclined to do here, after we check back this flop, I think we have to call down. So it kind of sucks a little bit having the ace of spades, because we block some of his flush draw combos that can elect to play this way. So he checked the flop. When he picks up the spade draw, he could start betting. So it kind of sucks that we block the nut flush draw here on this run out. But given that we have seen this player 4-bet fold, we can make some assumptions that he's going to be at least somewhat aggressive. So given that we've shown weakness, he may be looking to attack that. So I would be looking to make a call down here. Let's see what we go ahead and we do. As I said, it's not like a completely trivial spot. It is a bit tricky, but I would be inclined to go ahead and make the call. Let's see if we're right. He does have the queen. Bit of a shame. He did pick up the flush draw on the turn, but he had the top pair to go along with it. I'd be very confident that that call will show a long-term profit, though. I like the way our opponent played the hand, by the way. I'm not entirely sure I'd be looking to open that hand from under the gun, but post-flop I think he played it absolutely spot on. So bottom right table, we're happy just to go ahead and bet here. On this kind of board texture, I wouldn't mind going just a little bit larger. So there are some draws, there are some kind of overcards with open-enders, overcards with gut shots. Pairs plus backdoor draws and so on that will all be floating most flop bets, so we could consider sizing up there a little bit. And absolutely trivial ISO spot here with the ace-king. This is a board I'd be inclined to check back. It's a pretty bad board for his limp calling range, so I think I would be looking to check the side based on what sizing they make it. And when he does call a flop bet, we have a pretty trivial give up here. I think our bet on the flop though is a little bit too optimistic on that kind of board texture. So ace-10 of the big blind, bottom left table. I'd be looking to 3-bet bluff this in a decent amount of scenarios. I don't hate just flatting and defending, but my general experience in micro-stake poker, people overfold to a pretty huge degree. And yeah, when there's a raise and a 3-bet from the button and we're out of position, I'm absolutely fine just folding there, obviously. But if it was folded around to us, I wouldn't mind using our hand with reasonable blockers to their strong Broadway combos to go ahead and fire in a 3-bet ourselves. Okay, so we open up, we flop middle pair with the gut shot. I don't think betting accomplishes a huge chunk here. We obviously are behind all ace-x. Betting, we might get called by hands like queen-jack, we might get called by 10-jack and king-10, stuff like that have pairs plus gut shots, but in general, that kind of hand would lend itself better to just checking and inducing rather than betting. I think he's going to be just continuing with the range that's considerably ahead of ours. And there's not that many completely disastrous run-outs for us with a hand like that, so I'd be inclined to go ahead and check that and allow our opponent an opportunity to bet with a hand that doesn't really need too much protection. We're happy to go ahead and squeeze here with the jack-jack, so I'd be looking to make it about 350 here. So, oh sorry, no, we're in position here, my apologies, I would not. I think your sizing to 275 is spot on. For some reason I was reading that board as we were out of position. This is a bit of a gross spot. So when we do go ahead and get 4-bet here, I think we just have to make a reluctant laydown here, unless we have any specific reads in this opponent. He's 4-betting from under the gun. He's repping an incredibly strong range, and yeah, I like going ahead and folding here. As I said, if we've got any reads, like anything in poker, you can always justify things. If our opponent is an absolute maniac, we're never folding jack-jack there. But without reads, which, I assume we're relatively readless in this pool, then I think it's an absolutely fine spot just to go ahead and give up. Best case scenario, we're against ace-king and we have a marginal edge, but there's going to be a huge amount of scenarios there where we are, a 20% dog. So ace-deuce again, very trivial open spot on the button, and ace-5 from the cutoff, definitely a spot to open as well. Okay, so this is the player who 4-bet us in the last hand. I think we can take a flop in position against him extremely comfortably here. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to fold this flop either. So we're getting 3-1 on our money. We have almost the nut-no pair. And if we do go ahead and flat here, it should at least freeze his action a lot of the time. If he can have a hand like ace-king there, where he will have to check to us and we can potentially bluff him off. Ace-queen actually has a reasonable chunk of showdown value there as well. So this is a player, he 4-bet us the last hand and he 3-bet us here. So obviously it's an extremely small sample, but there at least is an indicator that he's a bit of an overly aggressive opponent. We have position, which is a huge factor here. And as I said, if we go ahead and we call there, we are repping like reasonably strong. Deuce-deuce, I don't mind flatting and I don't mind 3-betting. Both are completely viable options. But going back to what I was saying about the ace-queen, it's just one of those spots where we can just utilize our position, and getting 3-1 there, we don't need enormous equity to win there, and given that we will get him to fold some better hands on occasion, and we have the best hand a reasonable chunk of the time as well, like if he's 3-betting a hand like, ace-jack, king-queen, those kinds of hands, it's a spot where we can potentially look to make a play. So 10-10 here. The only reason I would be inclined to flat here is that we've lost a few hands in a row, so people might perceive us to be on a little bit of tilt. So I think flatting here would be a perfectly viable option given our current table image. Not to say I don't mind the 3-bet. I would be looking to size it up a little bit. I'd be looking to make it around 350. But as I said, I think in this particular dynamic, I'd be looking to go ahead and just flat and play it more so for set value, or else just look to play some money on favourable run-its with an incredibly under-repped hand. Just as I said, just because people would perceive us to be a little bit on tilt, so might be more inclined to make looser plays. And if we get 4-bet, we can't really continue, so... But we take it down, so that's always fine too. King 7, pretty easy open. 9-5, we're never considering calling there versus any stack size, but given that he's short, it would make it even worse, obviously. Okay, so we flop top pair, good kicker on a somewhat scary board. I'm looking to go ahead and fire here. I don't see too much value in checking this back. Most cards in the deck are worse for us than good, so I would have just gone ahead and fired there. We must start betting now, definitely. And 6-7, we are looking to make a play at it. Let me take it down nice. (10-3) suited up in the top left table. If we have specific reads that an opponent is over folding 2 steals, we can consider opening it there, but it wouldn't be in my standard opening range, that's for sure. I didn't see how the action went on the bottom right table. It looks like there is potentially a bit of a pop brewing though. When that board gets bet called, I think there is a reasonable chance that some more money is going to be going in on later streets. And we take it down with the ace-jack. Never a complete disaster, just taking down the blinds. Obviously, we would have preferred a little bit of action there, but as I said, it's far from a disaster, just taking down the blinds. There are always worst case scenarios, which is one of my favourite expressions, than just winning the blinds. There are obviously a lot better scenarios as well, but hey, we can't get too greedy. Okay, ace-7 here. I would be inclined to go ahead and fold. We are getting quite a good price, but we have a hand where reverse implied odds work quite heavily against. I think that's a spot where I've noticed a lot of my students that I take on. That's kind of spots where they're not sure of it because they have an ace and they're getting a reasonable price. But I think it's just going to be too tricky to play. We're out of position in a multi-way pot, and it's just going to flop quite poorly. And when we do flop an ace, it's going to be quite tricky to get paid. When we have the best hand, and it's going to be quite tricky to pot control when we have the worst. So just leads to a lot of awkward scenarios. With the ace-10 here, I definitely like your check back. It's not a hand where we're going to be able to get 3 streets of value. So checking back can induce some bluffs, and it can also potentially induce some lighter call downs on later streets as well. And I do like betting the turn. I'd size down just a little bit. I'd go for maybe kind of half pot, just ever so slightly smaller. We're not overly afraid of him having too much 6x here. And we're really just looking to kind of price him in with the hand, like say if he has like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, those kinds of hands. Pocket 8s has the gut shot as far as I recall from the board, so maybe he calls the larger size of those, but say pocket 9s, pocket 10s, those kinds of hands that he might not elect to 3-bet versus under the gun open. We definitely want to give him a reasonable price to continue with those kinds of hands that are drawn close to dead against us. Okay, so we get re-raised here with the jack and the jack. We get squeezed. I think I'd be inclined just to go ahead and re-raise, get it in here when we get squeezed. So we don't need to go particularly huge here. We can make it in around the €3 mark, maybe slightly over, 3.10, somewhere like that. And that will... So we're sizing it down. We had gone up to the 3.10 mark and we go back up. Okay, and I think just sizing up there a little bit. And that seems like perfectly reasonable sizing. And if he does jam, we're not loving life, but we are not folding either, I hope. And we take it down. We take it down a reasonably bloated pot there pre, which is far from a disaster with a jack and a jack. I didn't see, I was kind of distracted by the jack hand there. I didn't quite see how the sixes played out. Ten-6 and 9-6, neither playable from under the gun, unfortunately. And not much we're going to be able to do with the 8 and the deuce in the big blind either. Fingers crossed we just go ahead and get the walk. So 9-10 down the bottom right table would absolutely be looking to steal here if it's folded around to us. Versus a button open, I could get on board with using this as a 3-bet bluff as well. From the cutoff though, when we're in the small blind, it would just be a little bit too wide. Got a walk with the pocket 8s, definitely not what we would have wanted with the pair in the big blind, but again, far from a disaster. And 9-7 off, even on the button, it's just too trashy a hand to continue with, so I like your fold there. It's another spot where I would see some people continuing on. just justifying it because they have position, which, I mean, let's face it, it is a very strong justification, but it's just a hand that is just a little bit too trashy. Okay, so the tables have moved around just a little bit. We have the two 25nl tables up in the top and the two 10nl tables down on the bottom. We've dropped off our 5nl game. Make it a little bit easier to track the action now that the tables are kind of in line. So the higher stakes at the top and the lower stakes at the bottom makes that a little bit easier. Take down the blinds of the ace-queen. Queen 4, not much we're going to be able to do there. Same with the jack tray, we just got to let it go. So pocket sixes here, I'd be looking to go ahead and ISO here. When there is a limper, I would be looking to go a little bit larger. I'd be making it 4x here versus the limp. When we're ISOing, we just want to size it up that little bit extra because there's the extra big blinds in the pot. Out of all of the flops we could have asked for, this is going to be right down there on the bottom. We have the monotone board, like the 4-flush board. It's not really a board that we're going to be looking to make any plays at. So here's a spot, I mean, we can consider just going ahead and overbetting here. Because, yeah, no one really shows too much interest in it. If we overbet there, it puts everyone in a really gross spot. Like, it's very clear no one is nutted when it's checked, when the turn checks through and the under the gun, or the first player to act checks the river. So I could potentially get on board with a small overbet there. Can't remember what the exact pot size was, but if we go for like 1.2x, it makes it really, really difficult for people to call. They're pretty much never going to call to chop, and it puts them in a really awkward spot to call with kind of marginal flow. Like, kind of, say if they have the 8 or the 9 of clubs, puts them in a really tricky spot there as well. So potentially we missed out there. Probably could have picked it up uncontested. I would be looking to size up our 3-bet here with the queen-queen. So we're out of position. My standard when we're out of position is to 4x, so that would be 120. There is a caller in there as well, so I'd be looking to bring this up a decent chunk to maybe around about 140. We don't have to add on a whole big blind to, or sorry, a whole original raise to the 4x, but I would be looking to go that little bit bigger to account for the limper. The king high board, we definitely want to be checking here. I think I'd be more inclined to check turn and bet the river if it goes check check. So we're more inclined to get hero there if we check turn and bet river. We're not like too afraid of the flush draw. I mean, obviously the diamond, if there's a diamond on the river, we're not loving life, but it's just a risk we got to take. We want to give them some opportunity. If they have no pair, they can potentially catch, like, you know, say a jack or a 10. If they have any of those kinds of cards in their range, they can pick up a hand that can call us in the river. And we're more inclined to get heroed by hands like ace high and stuff like that as well. Obviously, if we check and an ace rolls off, it's a bit of a disaster, but as I said, we're looking to maximize our EV. Sometimes we got to take lines that kind of don't work out in our favor too much. With the queen-queen here, I'm pretty much just going to be pumping it up and be not overly happy if the original 3-better jams. So we can go pretty big here. We can looking to make it around about €9 I'd be looking to make. Ripping it in is actually, now that I'm thinking, now that I see you make that option, I actually prefer just ripping it. We're not re-raise folding, and yeah, if this makes it look as weak as possible, I'm totally on board with this jam now that I think about it a little bit more. I think we're more likely to get heroed by, like, you know, hands like pocket pairs. Like, people just think like, oh, he's just jamming, he must have ace king, so they just rip it in, things like that. So, and we have a short stacker in the cutoff there, or sorry, in mid position. I think they're going to call pretty frequently. So we get called by this guy. This is kind of interesting. I'm not too concerned about him having aces or kings. Yeah, he has the jacks, nice. The ace rolls off, it's kind of sick. Hopefully we just hold against the jack and the jack though to pick up the decent pot, the decent side pot. So I'm not sure if we made money or lost money there, but it could have been worse, obviously. If we if the original player with Jack hadn't stuck around, we would have lost money for sure. Because we won the side pot versus him, though, it's not as bad as it could have been. But hey, not as good as it could have been either. Less than ideal seeing the ace-5 call it off there. But this is kind of going back to what I'm saying, where we have, short stackers, probably not the most experienced players, making some pretty drastic mistakes. I mean, calling the... taking a note of fish cake, nice. So yeah, he limp called the 3-bet and then stacked off there with the ace-5 suited, so obviously that is a complete disaster. But hey, sometimes the weaker players have to get lucky, otherwise they would never play the game. That's just something we got to deal with. We got our money in good, nothing more we can do. Okay, so that's going to round out part 1, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. As I said, this is going to be a 4-part series, so I'll be moving on to parts 2, 3, and 4 in the very near future. As far as I'm aware, these were all recorded in one session back to back. I haven't actually watched the videos yet, so I can't confirm that, but that's my understanding. So we'll see how the rest of the session plays out, see if we can use any of the reads that we've picked up throughout this first part in our later sessions as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon in part 2. Take care.